folks shattered and grieve. See, the devil wanna scatter and deceive, and God's no love, he'll leave you battered to bleed. Every day getting sadder, we need the love of Jesus Christ instead of another platter of weed. I pray the Lord has mercy on my soul. Sometimes I find me climbing up the ladder of greed, trying to get my scribble right, but the Lord said I'll be more blessed if I go ahead and scatter my seed. So I'm trying to do everything he tells me, instead of saying that it really don't matter to me. See, the tongue is a boastful thing. It could either bless or be full of chatter indeed. Lord, help me say the right thing instead of hearing my mouth running off full of flattering speed. For God so loved the world that he gave his only son so that we could be saved. He died on a tree for you and me. He healed my disease and he said.
Okay, well, we're here again today by popular demand. The subject, Thug Love Exposed. And just a little recap about what we talked about last time. We talked about the attraction, a young woman's attraction to the thug.
Mm-hmm.
And we also discussed your testimony, which was a very powerful testimony. I mean, you had very knowledgeable insight that really blessed a lot of our viewers.
Amen.
And on today's podcast, what we want to go in is into the bullying aspect, because we had talked about that. We didn't get to go too much into that last time.
Right.
So, one thing that, I've noticed is that a lot of times I'm called to do bullying workshops. And one thing that I address is, people, let's talk about how we deal with the bully.
Mm-hmm.
But when we look at our society, we live in a society that basically praises and glorifies bullies.
Yes.
And, people say, well, what do you mean by that? But when you look at the thug culture, which we've been talking about, the thugs and pimps
Mm-hmm.
are glamorized.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, a pimp is an individual that degrades a woman down to the core of her soul.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, basically, a pimp is a glorified slave master.
Mm-hmm.
But yet, you have a lot of young women running after these self-proclaimed pimps.
Yes.
I mean, what is your take on that? When you see these young women and, they have the posters of these young men, even older men that, basically putting it out there that, I'm the number one pimp.
I think it's absolutely heart-wrenching to know that you have a young woman who is vulnerable and being taken advantage of by another individual. I want to say man, but at the same time, it's much lower. He doesn't even deserve the respect or the title of being called a man. Someone who would, as you said, degrade a woman and strip her of her very essence, strip her away from her virtue, strip her down to nakedness, so that he can begin to use her and manipulate her for his profit, for his gain. It's disgusting. It's absolutely despicable. And you think about the woman who's being victimized, what must be going on with inside of her spirit? What's going on with inside of her soul for that she would allow herself to be victimized in this manner? And as you said, unfortunately, our society has been desensitized to this type of lifestyle. And it's been going on for years, for decades. Back in the day, I remember when I was in high school, we'd watch Dolomite videos and thought it was just the funniest thing. It was extremely humorous to us. We didn't look at it as this was actually someone who was beating up these young women and using, I think he used karate or something like that. I can't,
right.
But it was funny. But really what was happening, and again, this wasn't created back in the 90s when I was in school. This was created, I think, the 70s when these type of movies were big and they were playing. But again, we're talking about desensitizing people to this type of lifestyle, and then the music, and the more that you listen to it, it weaves its way into our society to where now it's absolutely everywhere. And it's actually, if you see a guy who has on a certain type of hat, instead of it being called, say, a straw hat or a Kango or whatever type of hat it is, they're going to refer to as a pimp hat. So now it's even woven its way into every fabric, literally the fabric of our society.
Now earlier I just showed you a commercial. And we're going to play that. You know, I'm going to play that for our audience. And it's a real product.
That is
and the product,
crazy.
you know, for our audience is Pimp Juice. Now they sell that. Matter of fact, out here in Sacramento, out in one of the areas which is a high crime rate area. But
now you wonder if that's strategically marketed.
Right. And this is a nationwide drink.
Oh! Cheer up! Pimp Juice!
Don't take the pimp, it's you.
Right.
What were your feelings on that commercial? Like I said, let's talk a little about what we saw in that commercial.
Okay.
Okay.
Well, first I had to watch the commercial, I think 5 times because
Right.
I couldn't believe what I was actually seeing.
Right.
You know, on one hand, can I believe it? Yes, I can believe it because if you turn on the television, you turn on the radio, it's everywhere around us, you know, this type of lifestyle and it being extremely acceptable. Girls walking themselves into this lifestyle, not always needing for a guy to approach them. You even have some young women that have taken on the role of becoming the pimp and they're trying to pimp other young women.
Right.
And so it's everywhere around us. But to actually have it now, again, first let me back up, excuse me. But as I said, your hats, oh, that's a pimp hat, that's a pimp jacket.
Right.
Those are pimp shoes,
Pimp your
socks,
ride, pimp this
your
ride.
ride. You know, and
Right.
now Pimp Juice. Pimp Juice. I mean, it's taken over absolutely everything. And the commercial was just astonishing that is even, I mean, it's just, it's crazy.
And that's
absolutely crazy.
that's a product by Nelly. But as you see two pimps. I think you drive up.
Yes.
This young woman walking her little dog.
Dog gets run over.
The dog gets ran over.
Right.
The woman, you know, basically is right there at the window. The pimps roll down the window, and what happens?
He knocks her in the face.
He knocks her in the
and
face.
he's wearing a big giant ring.
Right.
You can't forget that. The
Right.
big giant ring he's wearing.
Exactly. And at the end of the commercial, all through the commercial, you hear laughing.
Yes.
Like hysterical laughing
Yes.
by this pimp.
Right. He's laughing, and the woman, it's a African American man who's
Right.
portrayed as the pimp, and then the woman is a Caucasian woman.
Right.
And I think that that's something that should
Strategically
be
set up. yes.
exactly that should be
Right.
noted. You know, and he punches her in the face and says, "Don't blame it on the pimp, blame it on the juice."
Right.
Are you kidding me?
Wow.
Are you kidding me?
And so you see a lot of young, you know, men being desensitized to what we just saw. There was domestic violence.
Exactly.
That was bullying.
Exactly.
Right. But yet, you know, when most kids watch that, I mean, a lot of kids are compelled to get the juice. Like I said, I've been in church youth groups, and they're telling me their experience drinking this juice. Like, why are you drinking? You're in the church youth group. What are you doing drinking pimp juice? And they just have like a blank stare. But like you said, it wasn't seen as a bad thing
right.
with this man punching this woman. You know, it was a pimp thing. You know, I remember just being in Vallejo, and I was setting up to do a workshop. This kid just walks by me arbitrarily, just says, "I'm a pimp." And just under his breath, "I'm a pimp." I said, "Excuse me?" He just looked at me and said, "Oh, I just said I'm a pimp." But see, that was a good thing, you know, and that's what we're seeing, like you say, going on in our society. And then, like you said, we're seeing domestic violence off the chart in grade schools right now.
Right.
Boyfriend and girlfriend relationships where you have, you know, these young men, you know, emulating the pimps like Lil Wayne and T.I. and all. You can see a lot of the young women. And I'm going to show a clip where we have Beyonce on stage.
Where my little buzz
Where
at?
my buzz at?
I see you.
And you see these young men, and like I said, we talked about last time, they look at a beautiful woman like Beyonce, and she's yelling for a thug.
Right.
She wants a thug.
Right.
But you've seen that these young men and this young women, basically girls and boys are getting together. When the girl wants to leave the boy, the boy's like, no, I'm a pimp.
That's
I
right.
look bad if I let you off my chain. You're going to go back in my stable. And this is what the view
Yes.
is when in the Department of Corrections, when I'm talking to these young men at the Department of Corrections, they said, we don't let these girls go anymore. I was talking to this young man from Compton. He says, the new thing is we put them in our stable and we prostitute our old girlfriends.
Right.
What is your take on that?
I just talked to a young woman the other day who called me because she was reaching out for help. And one of the things that she said to me, first she called me crying hysterically. My boyfriend just broke up with me. I said, well, I'm sorry to hear that. And she began telling me the story about her and her boyfriend. The story goes on, and she says how the day before they broke up, he had slapped her, hit her, knocked her head against the window because she was looking at another man, young man, mind you, because these are teens. And, you know, the guy who she was looking at, you know, made a comment, what'd you hit her for? What was up with that? And he was like, oh, this is my work. This is mine.
Wow.
Not
Just
my
an object.
girlfriend.
An object.
Yes, an object. Not my woman, not my lady, but this is my work.
Wow.
Her perception of the relationship was that this is my boyfriend.
Mm-hmm.
And his is, no, this is my work. And that goes back to exactly what you're saying. You know, and what some of these girls don't realize is that they're being preyed upon. This young lady is in foster care, and you have a lot of young girls who are in those types of situations, in foster care, in group homes, and they're running away, they're getting hooked up with boyfriends, and these boyfriends are just priming them.
Right.
Just getting them ready so that they can get them out on the streets. That's the next step. And they don't realize that this is what's happening to them. And then, as you said too, we look at bullying, we look at domestic violence, and if you go back to bullying, it's a big thing. It's serious, and I get that, and I agree with every show that does they do a segment on it, from Dr. Phil down to anyone else who does something, who do segments on it, but they're only showing one aspect of the bullying issue. This is a whole nother area of bullying that needs to be addressed. We're talking about these boys who are beating up these girls, and yes, it's domestic violence, but they're also have, you know, the bullying aspect to it, because they're punking these girls,
right,
you know, and they are putting them in situations to where, you know, they feel as if there's no escape for them, that they have nowhere to turn, because they've now been pinned, almost like they're pinned up inside of a corner. They have no one to turn to, and the guys are even threatening them.
Right. Now, do you have a personal experience with bullying? Maybe you yourself or a friend that was a victim of a bully, maybe a boyfriend bully? I do, and again, the why I do the work in which I do, you know, so many different times we wonder when we're going through different situations, God, why am I going through this? Or even when we look back, sometimes we forget that, you know, God's hand is always on our lives, and He says that He'll never leave us nor forsake us, and that everything can be used. And there were different times in my life where I couldn't understand, why did some of these things happen to me, and why did God allow it? And now here I am sitting with you, and I have the opportunity to share different pieces of my story, of my testimony, that I pray can bless someone. And when it comes to the domestic violence and bullying, yeah, I was in a relationship. I was 17 years old with a guy, again, talking about that thug mentality. You know, he was a Crip. He thought he was big and bad, and I was attracted to him. He had never shown any signs of aggression towards me. And I want to, you know, make sure that that's like clarified, you know what I'm saying? Not aggression towards me. Right.
And so I saw him as being somebody who could protect me. I'm only 5'2", and he's about 6'1". So again, he's a protector is what I saw it. And he was cute and had the swag and the look and everything that I was interested in. But then one day, because again, that type of lifestyle, you're drinking, you're smoking, and he's drinking and he's smoking, and we're hanging out, I had to leave to go to work, and something snapped in him. He thought I was wanting to leave him, and there was someone else who was actually in the room as well too. And that's something that I think, unfortunately, when a girl is being victimized and being physically abused, that the friends don't step in all the time, and they should. And in this situation, the friend who was there did not. And this guy took me by my hair, and slammed my head up against a couch. And it was a really old couch, the corner of the couch, so it was a wooden, and there was blood everywhere.
Wow.
And I found myself, and it's the first time anyone had ever laid their hands on me in this kind of way. And I remember running to the bathroom thinking, if I could crawl out of a window, how can I get out of here? I've got to leave. I have to escape. And he apologized, and I believed him that he was sorry. He says, I'll take you home. And in the car, we're going home, and he takes me home. And we get to my house, and he actually kicks in my door and commences to hit on me some more. And for years, I had a bruise in the middle of my forehead from where he knocked me in my forehead and kept pounding my head so hard where I literally felt myself gasping for air and going in and out of consciousness.
Wow.
I did press charges, and I've left the relationship, and that was the end of that. And that was the last time I found myself in that type of situation. And
Well, that's good. You pressed charges. That's
yeah,
good.
I did, and I cannot say, Ray, I wish I could say that was the last time I dated a guy who fit that fit inside of that that thug image. And
what is it? It's kind of like a lot of these young women feel like they're gonna co-reign the streets with this thug. Like they're not gonna attack me, even though they see them, acting aggressively towards others. They just have, that fantasy. Well, that's not gonna be me.
No,
we're partners.
I never saw it as being me because I was someone who, I'm his woman.
Right.
He's gonna take care of me. Whatever he does that in the street. That has nothing to do with me. I'm someone that he wants to love and he wants to protect. He wants to make sure that I'm okay. He loves me. This young lady who I talked to on the phone the other day, and that's what this boy was telling her. I love you. You're the only one. And it's not true. And that's what a lot of these, I want to say younger women and women too. Because, Ray, unfortunately, it's not just teens who are being victimized in this way. But it's adult women. It's women who 25, 30, 35, 40, and even 50.
Right.
Who still find themselves caught up inside of this violent cycle. Because again, when we're talking about we're talking about a thug lifestyle, but this thug lifestyle is multifaceted. It has other dimensions inside of it. And as you just said, we're talking about a thug lifestyle when you have the dimension of bullying, we have the dimension of domestic violence, we have the gangs, we have all these different facets of it. And so when we look at, say, again, this glorification of the pimps, that's not only targeting to our young kids, but that's targeted to our college age, our young adults, and the adults period, because you have grown men who still want to walk around and think that they a pimp and they got women and that this is okay, that it's acceptable, because unfortunately there's a segment of our society that does say it's acceptable, and so now they're bringing that home. And so you have grown women who are finding themselves going down, who are married, getting tested for HIV and AIDS, and coming up with they're positive.
And it seems like the common denominator is they all like I say, you ask them what their musical selection is.
Yes.
It's the thug.
Yes.
But why is that? Why is these women, and like I said, we talked before about music and the brain and what Fortune 500 companies know.
Yes.
That music has the power, to basically enter an individual's subconscious.
Right.
Their right brain. During the awake hours and during the sleep cycle, is able to reprogram one's beliefs.
Yes.
Without them even knowing it.
Right.
Because like you said, when you sit down, and when I sat down and showed these women the lyrics of the artists that they say they love, and when they really read it, and not grooving to the beat,
right,
grooving to the rhythm, but looking at the words, it's almost like a light turns on. Why do you like this? Is this okay? Would you like this individual reading this to you without any beat or rhythm? Well, of course not. If somebody, Joe Blow down the street just came and read this to you, you'd probably slap them. They agree.
Exactly.
But yet, I just like it because of the beat and the rhythm. It's like, well, basically, in essence, what they're saying is that I'm going to sell out my self-respect for a beat, for a rhythm. You know, and when you get them to see that, like I said, get them to think about what they're thinking about. Because like I said, their children, their daughters are watching, you know, the behavior. And that's why one thing that we do, people say, you talk about the music too much. I say, I don't talk about the music enough.
Right.
How do we learn our ABCs? Through the music. Music is one of the most powerful learning tools. How did Hitler organize his regime? Music played a big part in that.
Right.
So what is your take? Why are these, you know, why is it that, I mean, it's like they're spellbound to
Well,
this.
Ray, you can't, and I don't mean to overtalk you, but something that you said a moment ago was, you know, I'm willing to sell my self-respect, my soul, who I am, for what it is that I'm listening to and what it is I see. I can't sell nothing that I don't have. If I don't have self-esteem, if I don't have self-worth, if I have no self-value, if I don't have a perception of who I am, what my value is, then how can I actually even begin to consciously make that connection that I'm selling myself? You can tell me that I'm selling myself and it sounds good, and it's a message that really sounds extremely good, and especially if you, in the deliverer, who delivers the message. But if that person, and again, we're talking about, I don't care if it's a teen or an adult, because you have a lot of adults who have jaded perspectives because of their tawdry past and that they haven't healed from. And so if I haven't healed from my yesterday yet, then I'm still looking, I might have an adult body, but I'm still looking out of the lenses of that 15, 16-year-old young woman or young man. And so therefore, if my self-image is still fragmented and I haven't been healed and made whole yet, then when you bring me a message of self-respect and I'm selling myself, there's no connection. There's a huge disconnect. And then we're also talking about a $12 billion industry.
Right.
And they're pushing this message in every single direction. And so if there's no connection inside of me, and here's this machine that's coming at me that's saying, you look good, and you only look good if you dress this way, if you walk this way, if your hips swing this way, and if you listen to this type of music, this is what makes you be socially accepted. This is how you gain significance. This is how you can value who you are as an individual. Well, now here it is. This thing that they're pumping into their ears constantly, they're constantly putting it before their eyes, the gatekeeper of their soul. And so if I'm constantly putting this thing in front of my eyes and it's telling me this is what I should be interested in, this is actually who you are, that's going to win.
So how do you start the healing process? Because like I said, this is a deadly epidemic.
Yes, it is.
A lot of young women are dying. We've had guys get out of our institution. You know, we've had these women just, you know, in this, I like to say, demonic soul tie.
Yes.
You know, where I just remember some of these guys on the phone, you know, you ain't going to the prom. No, you staying home. Matter of fact, I got the homies watching you. And these guys are doing years in the, you know, like I said, years in prison.
Right.
But yet they're saying they still have a control hold. Here's this young girl that maybe was attracted, you know, to that, you know, that whole thug swag.
Yes.
But now they're in bondage. And I can't tell you how many women, not just young women, but older women that say, man, if I would have just known. Now they're in bondage now to this individual. Now this individual, this thug is out here just sleeping with all types of other women, but he's making sure, as he calls it, this woman stays in my stable.
Right.
You know, I've known young women that have been killed by thugs. I have a cousin out of mine in South Central Los Angeles. She had told me that she's walking down the street and this guy asked for her phone number. She says, no, I don't want to give it to you. He pulls out a Uzi gun and puts it to her head. Give me your phone number. You see, so this is like an epidemic. So we got to talk about it. And I think, you know, like you said, it comes down to a lot of when young women wouldn't put themselves in these type of situations. Like I said, if there was some healing going on, if there was some awareness, and you know, how do you plant that self-respect into a young woman? And see, a lot of these young women come from good homes. These aren't just single-parent homes that we're talking about. And you see, a lot of times that's the myth.
Yes.
They come from single-parent homes. These women have been abused. That's not always the case, because I know a young lady that came from a Christian home. You know, a well-to-do Christian home that was killed in the Bay Area by her boyfriend, a thug boyfriend, and she was raised in the church. You know, nice young lady, but just attracted to that whole persona.
We're talking about a movement, if you will, that crosses every demographic, every socioeconomic status. It doesn't matter. It doesn't care what race, what religion. It doesn't care about any of these things whatsoever. You know, and when we talk about what is it that we can do, and I like what you said because it's absolutely true, you know, about it doesn't matter if it's a single parent household, because that's what people would want to believe. You know, well, look at the family that she came from. Look at the friends that she chose to hang around with. Look at, you know, the schools that she went to. Look at the way that she dressed. You know, all of these, that's not all the time what we're looking at. You know, sometimes, yes, unfortunately, there are some girls who have not yet been given the proper skill set, who, you know, that's another practical steps that need to be taught to that group of girls. But it doesn't matter. You know, unfortunately, when we're talking about this epidemic, every child is at risk. Every person is at risk, because we're talking about something that doesn't care about demographics, socioeconomic sense. Doesn't matter. It's all about trying to make sure that it's out to steal, kill, and destroy. Can it get you? And if we're not keeping our eyes open, if we're not paying attention, and if we're not honest with ourselves about really where we are, and really, really, really saying, okay, you know what? I want to do different. I want to be different, and making the steps toward that. Because we live in a society right now where you have some people that would say that it's a guy who puts a girl into, again, we're talking about that, the prostitution, the pimping thing, that it's a guy who would put that girl out there, that it's a lot of mind control that's going on. You have a lot of young ladies that have put themselves out on the streets.
That's true. That's true.
I read a story not too long ago from a young lady down in the Bay Area, 15, Ray, 15, who went to some other friends of hers and said, you know, this is what I'm going to do. I got to get paid. I got to make me some money. And so she started prostituting herself out and was getting beat up, wasn't really getting nowhere. So her friends told her, I know a guy you should talk to, and turned her on to this other pimp. And so she connects with this pimp, and now he has her out in the street. If it wasn't for a uncle, I believe, who saw his niece butt naked in an ad on Craigslist, she might not be with us today.
Wow.
You have young ladies that are putting other young girls, as I said early, out there. So we have to break the stereotypical line of thinking that we have when we're looking at bullying, prostitution, domestic violence, and what that really is. And really begin to look at what practical steps, what types of practical application can we use to begin to build these young women up. If you're talking about a young woman who has been victimized in this lifestyle, she's been traumatized.
Right.
She's been traumatized. And what may work for one girl, it's not a one size fits all. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You know, we're talking about people who might start suffering from post-traumatic stress disorder, people who might suffer from anxiety, depression, who might suffer from all kind of different type of psychosis. And so we have to begin to actually look at what types of therapy can we begin to implement for these young ladies, that we can truly engage them to get them the type of help that we can to integrate them back into society, that they feel good about who they are, building a sense of awareness so that they can begin to build some self-worth, and that their virtue can be replaced. Because Ray, your virtue can be replaced.
That's well said. Well said. Wow. You know, we look at, like you said, what are some things maybe some parents that you feel some parents need to know? Because like you said, we talked about how parents sometimes can be conditioning, without them even knowing it, conditioning their, their children to have an affinity towards this lifestyle. Like you said, we're talking about the music, we talk about video games, Grand Theft Auto.
Right.
I remember talking with the guys at the institution about this, and they got all excited about this game. And they were talking about, man, Johnson, you get to have shootout with your enemies, you get to have shootout with the police. And then one of them mentioned something that really shocked me. He said, you get a download to where you can have a prostitute. I'm like, you a prostitute? He says, you take her out into the cuts. I'm like, you take her out into the cuts? He says, you handle your business with her. He says, then you kill her. And you get hood points for that. Now, they sell this game, Kerri, at Toys R Us.
Yeah.
You know, but these are things that are in people's households. Christians even have these in their households. And a lot of them say it's just a game.
Again, we have to change our whole perception. We've got to take on a brand new paradigm. We have to completely change the way that we think at things, the way we look. Yeah, it might have been just a game some years ago, but it's not just a game anymore. It might have just been a movie years ago, but it's not just a movie anymore.
Speaking of that, not to interrupt you, but
that's okay.
They said that game, Grand Theft Auto, the movie Titanic, #1 DVD sales, I think, in history. Grand Theft Auto game sales outsold the Titanic.
I want to say it's unbelievable, but at the same time, I can see how that is, unfortunately. I can see how that is. Again, look at the machine that they're going up against without realizing exactly what's being done to them spiritually, what's being done to them emotionally. The emotional state of these individuals who are watching this. You're being repeatedly shown murders. You're being repeatedly shown, and you are enacting these things. So now when you feel, when you're angry, you're in a state of rage and full aggression. You mean to tell me you're ready to just go sit and have a seat? Let's talk about this. I want to engage you in conversation so we can discuss our problems and do some, you know what I'm saying?
Right.
That's not going to happen.
No. It's
You're
like
going to go
they're
way
conditioned.
past that.
Right. There's a conditioning process going on.
Right.
And I remember even being in, teaching an anger management class at Department of Corrections. And it's like anger management class isn't going to work for an individual if they see anger as a good thing. And a lot of them would see anger as a good thing, right?
Right.
It's like, you're trying to have me do what? Anger management? Anger is how I get people to be afraid of me.
Right.
Anger is how I get, my prostitutes to, be on the streets for me. It's like, you take away my anger, you take away my power.
Right.
You see? So you have a lot of people
False
saying, well, we need all these different resource groups and things like that, but if you don't go to the core, to the root of it, and bring awareness, and show these individuals that this is a self-destructive lifestyle that you're involved in.
Right.
So that's the first thing that I would deal with, on my caseload was, okay, let's look at the big picture here.
That's right.
And that's what you have to do. And like I said, then the next thing you got to do is you got to touch the conscience.
That's right.
If you don't touch the conscience, ain't nothing going to change.
That's right. And I absolutely agree with you, Ray, on that. Because if I can bring some awareness and begin to actually provide some information, some knowledge to you, I don't care all the conflict resolution, anger management that you do, it's not going to do anything. It's just another message. And they're just passing time, waiting till they're finished with that class and they can go on and take their next. Can you sign off on this so I can get my certificate, whatever it is that I need to do. That's it and that's all. And again, especially when you're talking about someone who around them, they're constantly pumping violence into their system. If I'm constantly pumping this type of violence inside of me, it's going to take more than just that. But you said it. I got to be able to speak to their conscience. I got to be able to get into them, into their heart, into their soul, and begin to build and begin to discuss the issues that are really plaguing them deep within inside, and deal with the root issues, the root causes. Pull those things up. Right. And now we can actually get someplace.
I remember being on this one unit, and it was a unit where it was just really loud. It was like the jail within the jail, where they're yelling and screaming back at each other, disrespecting each other. The gangs are disrespecting each other. I mean, just loud all day. But I remember one day, it got kind of quiet. But yet, I remember there's this one individual still screaming and kicking and yelling and hitting his door. And I went over to him, I said, bro, ain't nobody even saying anything to you. What are you doing? Why don't you just go to sleep? But we engaged in a conversation, and He told me, he says, Johnson, when it's quiet, I hate it. And I said, why do you hate it? He says, because when it's quiet, I think.
Wow.
And I said, what do you think about? He said, I think about all the evil I've done. He says, I think about all the women I've violated. I mean, he just started really just opening it up. He says, and I don't like myself. He says, when I'm on the street, you know, I could smoke weed, I could drink, I could listen to some music, I could be at a party. I don't have to think about it. But on this lockup unit, I don't have that option. I remember asking him, I said, well, why did you get into the gang? Why did you get into this lifestyle in the first place? He said, out of respect. You know, I wanted people to respect me.
Right.
And I said, well, let's just test that theory. He said, what do you mean? I said, does anything that you do in this lifestyle, you know, in your gang, does it violate your conscience? You know, when I ask these individuals, they all tell me, yeah, of course it violates my conscience. Well, how do you handle that? I smoke weed and, you know,
Right.
just do something to take my mind off it. Then I'll ask them this question. I said, would you say it's fair enough to say that your conscience and your self-respect is one and the same? What do you mean by that? I said, if I could spin you up and pressure you to do something that would go against your conscience, would I make you violate your self-respect? And they all tell me, yeah. But I make sure they say it. I said, well, wait a second, hold on. You just told me you got involved in this lifestyle, in this gang, for respect. They said, that's right. But you just told me just now that what
Right.
you do in this lifestyle in your gang violates your self-respect. What do you mean by that? I said, well, you know, can you see that you're living a lie?
Right.
You know, here you are trying to get respect from others for something that you're doing that disrespects your own self. You know, so how can you be in a lifestyle for respect when what you do in this lifestyle violates your self-respect? And that's what a lot of young men do, because when I ask them, does pimping violate your conscience?
Right.
Of course it does.
Exactly.
They'll say, does hitting a woman violate your conscience? Of course it does. How do you deal with it? I smoke weed and I drink. That's why you see them on these videos smoking weed and drinking all the time, because that's the only thing that could give them that peace. But it's a counterfeit peace that we know.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's sad that they have no real peace, and that they actually have to use another substance to be able to have some type of peace, because of what they're doing is completely violates everything that they know.
Right.
Because they wouldn't, if somebody was doing that to a younger sister,
Right.
a niece, a cousin, their mom,
Right.
it'd be a different story. But they in turn will do that to someone else's daughter, to someone else's niece,
Right.
to someone else's mother, and have no problem with it as they're doing that, because for the monetary gain, for what it's doing to them, it's increasing their profit, their bottom line. And what I find to be absolutely amazing, Ray, is that the criminal activity in which they partake of, if they use that same skill set,
Right.
where would they be at if they use that in another way? If they put that forward, you know, with inside of their education,
Right.
developing themselves, the different natural skills and abilities that they have.
And they will have a peace with it. Because I say
Exactly.
you cannot live a life of peace and joy violating your conscience. You just can't do it.
Right.
I said a real man, a real woman lives their life according to their God-given conscience. Same with young women, right? Is that music that you're listening to, is that violating your conscience? If they listen to it, they will say yes.
Right,
So, well, in essence, you're violating your own self-respect.
right.
This is why you got to have happy hour. You know, this is why people have to say, well, I need a drink.
Right.
You know, because a lot of times those are individuals, I'm not saying everybody that does that, but a lot of them, they're living a lifestyle that is in conflict with their God-given conscience.
Yes.
And see, once people realize that, and you would be surprised how a lot of these gang members, when I brought that to their attention, when I bring that to their attention, how the next day they want a self-help book, because now they realize that they're living a lie.
Right.
Because all this time they thought it was the truth, and it wasn't.
Well, you know, I believe that, because if you go to a church on any given Sunday where you have someone who's speaking a message as powerful as this, and there's an altar call, how many people actually come up to the altar? How many men, how many young women, they come up because they want to repent.
Right.
They want to turn their lives around. because again, their conscience has been touched, their heart has been pricked, and they don't like what they're doing.
Right.
But there's no one there who's showing them that they care. But outside of just this initial stuff, as you just said, they pick up this self-help book and then they want to read more. That goes back to the practical application. What's the follow-up?
Right.
Because it's not just this one-time message of deliverance.
Good point.
But what's the follow-up process look like? And is that follow-up process so far out of reach and out of touch that there's no way that they feel that they can even do that? You have a lot of kids who, unfortunately, in this day and age, who drop out of school in 8th grade, have an 8th grade education. Some of them can hardly read. And so what do they turn to? They turn to gangs, they turn to streets, they turn to hustling, because they're going to get paid.
Right.
They got to take care of themselves, and don't let them start having babies.
Mm-hmm.
Some of them might take care of 1 or 2 babies, but then they might start just trying to help out with populating the earth.
And then you got the cycle just repeating itself.
It's repeating itself.
Right.
And so they feel bad for what they do. Some of them, I truly believe that, because I've talked to some. And they don't like the lifestyle that they're caught up in,
right.
but they don't see
That's
another
true.
way
they
out.
Don't. Exactly. A lot of them,
they don't see a way
people
out.
think they just want to act like that, but they really don't. They really do want to change.
They want to change, and they don't see
Right.
a way out. And then you have so many people who, unfortunately, snub them, look their noses down on them. That part of society, that group of people, they need to be eliminated, and all the other types of conversations which you hear. Unfortunately, some people, if you listen and you can overhear them.
Yeah, even in the music, some of these
yeah.
rappers, talking about Tupac, you could tell that even their conscience was troubled.
Yes.
And they, like I said, they want to do the right thing. DMX, even in his lyrics, you see that message where there's a conflict, a war going on within
right.
their conscience, where they really do, a lot of them really do want that peace,
Yes.
They want to have peace with their conscience.
They're looking for ways.
Right, because God puts that within us. God puts
That's
a
right.
conscience inside us that when we violate it, there's an alarm that sounds which gives us a dis-peace.
Yeah, and then when
an unrest.
I really, what you're saying is, I'm like connecting with you, and I'm getting a little excited, because as you're saying that, I'm thinking of the young women too.
Right.
Same thing. Because we have a society that's telling them, jump on the pole, as we talked about in the last
right,
video.
Exactly.
You can strip, but then again, if we're talking about prostitution, and I want to emphasize that it's not always this guy who's going out, clubbing this girl on the head, and snatching her and saying, you finna be my hoe, and
right.
I'll put you on the strip.
That's true.
That's not always the case.
Right.
You have girls who willingly put themselves out there. You have other women who are putting other girls out there on the streets.
Well, you look at Foxy Brown and Little Kim.
Yeah.
They're promoting that type of behavior.
Oh, yeah.
Be independent. Get out there, women, and get your own hustle. Be your own, pimp.
Well, and now you have Nicki Minaj, and you have women who are looking at these women, and this is what they're seeing, and they're saying, okay, well, I can be that pimp type of woman. I can go out and get men, and I could take them for all their money. Men do it all the time. What's wrong with it? I can go and I can get men, and I can pill them for their money, have them buy me purses, have them buy me handbags, have them buy me clothes.
That's right.
And become a high-priced, prostitute. And then you have the young women who are women. I want to say women, because we're talking about young girls who do this, and then you have women who do this as well too. And they feel that they're not, a prostitute or a hoe,
right?
Because they're not there on the streets. But it's like, well, I got news for you.
Right.
Anytime there's an exchange that's going on,
that's
and
right.
there's an expectation that you're going to pay one way or another, then that's still that same type of spirit of prostitution that's going on. It's the same thing. You just ain't walking up and down the street.
That's right.
It's the only difference. You trying to get your rent paid. You trying to get some new shoes. You trying to get some milk for your baby, food for your baby, and again, some of them, they just trying to go shopping. I'm just looking for somebody to give me some money so I can go shopping, or somebody take me shopping, and there's a happy ending for him at the end of this trip.
Right.
It's the same thing.
Exactly. That's well said. Now, Kerri, wrapping this up, what is this solution? I know, like you said, we say it's case by case for different people, but just in a nutshell, in general, if you just had to speak to our whole audience, what is what is the core message, some core principles that, can help a young woman build some self-respect that maybe doesn't have self-respect or is hurting, that needs some healing? What would you recommend to that young woman, that young girl out in our audience today?
I would let them know that there is somebody that loves them. I would let them know that there's somebody that cares. That the feelings of insecurity, rejection, the fear, the depression, the self, feeling as if nobody loves them, that nobody cares, that there is somebody who does. There is somebody that says, even if your mother and father forsake you, that I won't.
Amen.
But knowing that there is someone who does care for them, and God will never, ever, ever leave us. And even if our earthly parents, earthly friends and family, they seemingly are not as attached to us as we would like them to be or want them to be, we can't blame them. We have to be able to forgive and understand that everybody has their own journey and that we have to be responsible for our own. That as long as there's breath inside of our bodies, that means that there's hope for tomorrow. There's always joy within inside the next day. So that first step is understanding that that is true. It's not just a message. It's not something that just sounds good on a Sunday morning or a Wednesday night. But it actually is the gospel truth. And having that understanding and then going a step further and then saying, okay, you know what? I am worth it. I'm worth this life that I've been given. I do mean something. I do have value. There are different things that I'm gifted at, and there's somebody out there who will appreciate me for just who I am, that you don't have to change. You don't have to fit into a society that says you need to look a certain way. Just the way you are is fine. You're perfect. There's nothing wrong with you. There's nothing wrong with the way you think, nothing in the way that you speak. There's nothing wrong with anything about you. And moving past that, I would say that to begin to encourage themselves and encouraging themselves by one, God gave us 31 Proverbs. There's 31 days in a month. Today's the 10th, so you read Proverbs 10. Tomorrow's the 11th. Read Proverbs 11. But prior to reading, ask God, you know what? I just need some insight. I need wisdom. I need understanding. You said if I ask that you'd give it to me. Show me who I am. Show me a path. Show me a way. Lead me into your truth. And then asking God to lead other people to support them on their journey. I know it works because God sent people to support me on my journey. That's why I am here today. And now God places different people in my heart to call them just to say, hey, how you doing? Or he's so amazing. You'll go to the grocery store and you'll run right into somebody, and at that very moment, you're just who they needed to see to give them a hope. And somebody will give you the hope in which you need. But you have to remember that tomorrow is promised for you, and that there's joy in tomorrow.
Powerful. Well, thank you, Kerri Herndon.
Thank you. I enjoyed it.
Okay. Like I said, we have your book. Tell us a little bit about your book again.
Yes, just as I said, here, I share my story, but the book is not a book that's just about me and my story. God used it as a tool. It's a message of deliverance, and it's a tool used for deliverance, because each and every single person inside of this earth is going to go through something. They're going to feel at times that there is no one who cares. Or if they don't find themselves in that pit of despair, they know someone else. And the book is a message of hope. It's a book to assist people with providing them hope and showing them that if this person can make it out, so can you. But not only is there a story, but I also give practical application. Ray, I'm big on practical application.
Hey, that's what's needed.
You've got to have steps. Needed. I give 21 days. I give you something to do to break the bondages of fear, depression, rejection, abortion, death cycles, how to break it in 21 days. And I provide you with a powerful prayer to help you stay inside of that place and knowing that God loves you and to be delivered. So it's an awesome resource. It's a 3-in-1 resource, really.
Powerful.
Yes.
Well, thank you for sharing with us, and we're gonna have you back on again for part 3.
Part 3.
Like you said,
Yes.
I think we touched more than the surface today.
We did.
That's right.
But we got to go a little bit deeper. As
There
you said,
it
we got to
is.
pull them. I was itching to get to them roots, but I know that's part 3 because we got to deal with the roots of that stuff and pulling it out. And how do you get delivered and remain delivered from that stuff?
Well, I look forward to it. Powerful, powerful message.
Amen.
Thank you, God.
Father,
bless
we just thank you so much. There's no name above your name. I wouldn't serve any other name. Yeah, sure, Mashiach.
There's power in the name. There's victory in the name. There's healing in the name.
Healing.
Anointing in the name.
Yes.
There is peace in the name. If you would speak aloud the name, that every knee shall bow before.
Every knee.
Every tongue proclaim. There's power in the name.
Power.
There's victory in the name. There's healing in the
So much healing.
anointing in the name.
Yes.
There's peace in the name.
Peace.
You would speak aloud the name. Every knee shall bow.
Every knee.
Every tongue proclaim. Yeshua, Mashiach, Jesus Christ,
Jesus.
the name
That name.
is above all names.
It's above all names.
And let us shout it to every nation.
Every nation.
You're the rock of our salvation.
It's the rock.
Yeshua, we bless your name.
We bless your name. We bless your name.
Yeshua,
Yeshua.
we bless
We bless your name.